Hi, I'm Meta Spencer.
Aha.
So there was a
Sorry.
very great letter recently. It's an article by Jeffrey Sachs in a magazine I hadn't heard of, and it's all about relations with Russia, and it's everything I believe in and have done since the beginning, but no one else seems to share. So I would like us to be able to talk about that for a bit. It's about how, according to the history of the past 200 years, Russia has been very maltreated with, and actually there is a great deal of right on their side. And the West should just try to get used to that, and peace could come out of it. I'm not expressing it well, but it's a brilliant essay.
All right, keep going.
All right. So in this essay, he does have records of every war that Russia was involved in, every step he took outside they took outside of Russia and were dealing with other countries. They were misunderstood. It was wrongly recorded, and basically there is a good reason for all of the interactions that Russia tried to have with the West, but they were absolutely never allowed to insist on a barrier between them, to a security curtain around them, getting away from NATO. And their pleas on that went on for nearly 30 years and were totally ignored. And so, in Sachs' view, this does make them the innocent party. And it would be sensible to do that because prosperity in Europe would be a great deal better. A very great many things could happen around the world if people would just come to peace with Russia, just admit, okay, we don't understand them, but we'll try to understand them. And we absolutely have to tolerate them because otherwise it will lead to a nuclear war and various things of that sort. And it's another part of it that I wanted to put in. He does give 10 suggestions of how we could work towards this type of peace. And okay, I'm losing it after that. Some more of it will come back to me later.
Okay, somebody else want to comment?
Yeah, two things. Marilyn won't be here. She's on the road somewhere headed east. Okay, so she's not going to make it. But I'd like to know.
My good wishes when you talk to her.
Okay, yeah. I'd like to know how this severe division between the two countries has occurred. Does it have something to do with the fact that we are a capitalist society over here and they are a communist society over there? Is that the division?
That's part of it. I would say that's where the very rough view of Russia came from, the beginning of their being communist, their not being able to make money on interest. So they, beginning in America and Britain, which were the biggest capitalists, they were, yes, just hugely averse to everything about Russia. But then a dismal view of them set in, because everyone in America would not have cared about interest rates. They would have said, well, who cares if a few of our billionaires lose a few dollars? They would have been interested in the more, not exactly communist, but more balanced economy. So when they were accused of everything being because of capitalism, then the US moved on to, and they're godless heathen. And so more Christians in the US would have taken that into fact. They might not have cared about the money and the interest rates, but these people don't go to church. And so that allowed for a great deal more, a huge level of horror, disgust, hatred, and it did come to hatred from the US, which is, quite largely that type of Christianity. And so that was what set in all of the sort of disgust about Russia. They're capitalists, and
Fortunately,
they don't
we have one Russian here.
Mhm.
So maybe it would be a good thing to speak to the Russian, the only Russian so far arrived here. Alexei?
Yeah.
Alexei.
Well, I've tried to read something written by Jeffrey Sachs, but well, I wish I could subscribe to his point of view, but I don't actually. This, of course, maybe as a kind of Western dissident, he may be willing to distribute like the guilt for the war at least between the West and Russia, maybe even placing more of it on the West. But well, I have a very different perspective of things, and I think there's a whole history of oppression, imperial oppression of many ethnicities, many former countries by the Russian Empire, whatever the name, the empire, Tsarist Empire, the Communist Soviet Union, and then now the new Russia. Very sadly continues the tradition of bullying its neighbors, and unfortunately, well, when a large nuclear power, maybe it's a regional power, but a nuclear one, one of the biggest nuclear powers, when it attacks a weaker, a smaller neighbor, I can't see how we could share the guilt between the two. Sorry.
Okay, so if I come in again, when you look at the history, there was the huge invasion of Napoleon into Russia, millions upon millions dead. In the Second World War, Hitler going into Russia, 27 million dead because no one else was supporting the Soviets on their side. It has always been invaded from the outside, and so they have to be very careful about their borders. So that's one thing. But also, if you simply read this essay from Sachs, you would see that he is able to comment on all those things, but it's also made so much the worse by the loathing of the West for Russia, whether they were ever attached to it, whether they were ever personally damaged by it. It's just a loathing. Now, all of the people that I read, Mearsheimer and the diplomat in Switzerland, all of them, they're all now referring to it as hatred. Hatred in the world has increased massively. It's now not that you don't like this country, you don't agree with this, you don't agree. It's hatred. And when hatred takes over a world population, that's got to be a very sick thing. There is no future in something like that. And so if people would go step by step to look at, all right, this situation, what really was the truth of it, who really started what, and so on, and then let go of that, just let go of it. And then if they went on to another part, this particular country, well, no, there were reasons for going there, and just let go of that. And then take it that you're not judging this essay from the beginning and saying, oh, I don't like this man, but you read every part of it, and his warm tone and his sense and his occasional little bit of humor, and I find him full of humanity. And if you actually read it through, then you could begin to think, perhaps he has a point. Maybe he has several points. And that's all I'm asking people to do.
Anybody else?
Well, if I may just throw in a couple of words. Thank you for mentioning You said aggression is a problem right now, and here I would completely
No,
agree.
hatred. I said hatred is a problem.
Hatred.
Yes.
Hatred and aggression as a result, as a manifestation of hatred. I think in general it's a huge problem nowadays. I'm embarrassed when I look at how antagonistic people become in many countries, divided into two mostly equal parts, like the U.S., like Poland, like many other, like France, like Germany. Whenever there are elections, people from the same country speaking the same language look at each other like the most bitter foes. That's something that I think is the trend is exacerbating, and that's a source of a great concern for me, to say the least. The people are less prone to look at the nuances. They're less friendly, less accepting each other. That's something I would of course agree with. But when we look at the history again, things are a bit more complicated. I'm reading a book right now about a French book, actually, in French, about the First World War, how it came about, what led to it, how diplomatic games led by France, Germany, Russia, Britain, and Italy. How they ended up in a world conflict, and the same was true for Napoleonic wars, when there were coalitions, when Russia was not only the victim, because there were lots of diplomatic maneuvers prior to that war. And when we come to the Second World War, let's not forget that Stalin was an ally of Hitler.
Only
in the
until
first
they
place.
built up their
Yeah.
forces. Only for that, and he explained it to the world. They had no armaments, no munitions, and they knew that Hitler was coming. So they had to save time. They had to make time for building up all the factories that would make all the weapons. And to do that, the only way that they could see was to, for a while, say they were on Hitler's side. And they told that to the other powers. But then, by the time they had their weapons built, then the war was, they were definitely the opposite of Hitler, but no one ever gave them a balance of what they had said. No one ever admitted to, well, yes, I could see you would have to do that if you had absolutely no weapons and you needed time. It's possible for, say, diplomatic people to say, well, yes, they do have a point there. It shouldn't be held against them forever. That type of thing.
Yeah, what I mean to say is that just Stalin did not only say that he was Hitler's ally, just to conceal his real intentions, or whatever, his intention to build up the industry, the rebuild the army, which Stalin had again killed himself. He killed lots of generals. It was against Stalin, and then he did not only say that he was an ally or friend of Hitler. They did attack Poland. That's how the Second World War started. They attacked Poland from two sides. This was a very treacherous attack. Two dictators, two cruel regimes, communist and fascist and Nazi regime. They both attacked Poland from both sides, and they killed lots of people. Let's not forget this. And lots of countries were occupied by both dictators. So here I beg to differ. Of course,
okay, if I can come in again, that's why I would urge you to read this paper by Sachs, because I am not representing it well. Whereas when you read him, you read the historic pages. He's got so many things in that you can tap on this and read the history of that. Tap here, read the history of that. He has it all covered. Why anyone went into Poland and so on. If you would take the time, and it wouldn't be very long, just to read that, it might cause you to think, oh, well, maybe there is another argument for that. I'm simply not representing it
Introduce a
well.
couple of other people. We have other people here. Brian von Hertzen has just joined us. He from Australia. Very good. And Lita Raptis, are you in Kingston or are you in Europe now? Lita?
No, I am in Kingston.
You're in Kingston.
So,
And are you well?
How I
Because you
lost
were having a health issue.
yeah, I do. Just a second. Yeah.
Can you tell us how you're
I
feeling?
am, well, all I can say that, I mean, I'm not, I don't know any Russian, so I mean, I don't speak the language and I cannot talk with authority about these issues. Maybe increase the volume. But one thing I can say is that in my experience, it has been loads and loads of misinformation, to put it mildly. For example, when I was at school, they were telling us, in Greece, of course, they were telling us that Greeks and Russians are age-old enemies. Okay? What is the truth? Why is it called Cyrillian alphabet? 2 Byzantine monks went up to the Russians and taught them how to read and write. Gave them the religion also. Later, they were, I mean, Catherine the Great was a big admirer of the Byzantine Empire and ancient Greek culture and all of that. And then, I mean, later, three brothers, Orlov, went over to Greece and tried to free them from the Turks, the Turkish occupation that lasted 400 years. And, I mean, the revolution, I mean, did not succeed, so a whole bunch of Greeks were loaded up on Russian ships and went over to Crimea. That's why today there are a whole bunch of names on Crimea with names of cities with Greek names. Pol stands for Polis. Sevastopol, Simferopol, Nikopol, and the whole bunch of others. Melitopol. So lots of exchange of from oranges to olive oil and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So after all of these, I would say very positive kind of interactions. Mm-hmm. We are age-old enemies. We became enemies because of the Cold War, because we ended up in separate sides mm-hmm. of the Iron Curtain. And also, another one I forgot, if you see close to Yalta, on Crimea, there is an area called Levadia. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Livadia. Mm-hmm. It's named after Katsonis, Lampros Katsonis, a Greek pirate who was beating up on the Turks, so he became a big hero. And Catherine the Great gave him helped him a lot in this. Later, when he got old, they gave him a very big villa close to Yalta in Crimea. Mm-hmm. And after he died, they expanded it, became a big palace, and this is where the Yalta Accord was signed. Mm-hmm. So after all of these, I would say positive interactions, and as far as I know, there haven't been any wars. Maybe because they were too far. Whatever reason, I don't know. But there have been lots of documented positive interactions. After that, they're trying to tell us that we are age-old enemies. For one thing, you have to be careful, because if you say age-old for Greece, modern Greek history starts at modern, 1453. Modern.
That was lovely. Thank you.
Anyway, so that's all I can say. But other than that, I'm full of ears. I try to understand. I'm trying to, understand what is, the real reasons. Of course, one thing is for sure is that it was not just an invasion. Expansion of NATO, of course, everybody knows that NATO was made back in 1949 after Second World War, and the purpose was against Russians. It was not about Yugoslavia or about Iraq or anything else. Okay, so, of course, it was a threat. So, what do you expect, sort of?
Let's have Norbert's turn.
Anyway.
Yes, sir. Norbert, speak.
Oh. Yeah, briefly. I'm Norbert. I'm a physician from Austria. Actually, I started as a German citizen. Oh. And I do a website called Better World Info, and I put a link or two in the chat for your interest. Yeah, it's very difficult to decide who is right and who is guilty and not. I guess usually it's both sides who have some guilt.
Yeah.
And for us in the Western world, we are, and that maybe Alexei, not sure where you are living now, but in the Western world, we are confronted with the Western media, and they have a very straightforward story, which is not fair to Putin and Russia. But apart from that, of course, Putin and Russia is the aggressor in this recent war. And it's good to understand the background. And I'm also a fan of Sachs and Mersheimer, because what they say now, they already said 3 years ago.
Yes.
And it's quite understandable what they are saying. Sometimes it appears that they are perhaps even pro-Putin, but I think they just try to counterbalance the Western narrative, which is Western propaganda versus the Russian propaganda, of course. Yeah, so it's gray, it's murky. There are arguments in favor, and it's good to have these voices to make clear that there probably would have been alternative approaches in the last 10, 20 years, 30 years towards Russia. I certainly believe there are. But it's complex, and I guess we won't settle this issue amongst us in a discussion back and forth. The other thought I had when Joanne was talking about Christian and socialism, capitalism, yeah, I think you're right. But remember, Russia is Orthodox Christian, and and I also think there is a lot of I personally think it's all about power, influence, and this, let's say, male psychology of strength versus the other concepts which are neglected, which are common security, OSZE, Paris Charter, etc. So, yeah, I feel we have to remind people in the West, at least, that there are alternative approaches. And it's also understandable that they should realize that the NATO East expansion is not looked at favorably by Russian power brokers. That's all. But please check. Could be that I found the link to the recent Sachs article, but there are a multitude of similar ones, and I have listed some of them under top videos and top texts on the Better World Info website. Thank you for that's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
I could send the article that I got to Meta, who could disseminate it.
Please, or put it in the chat if you can.
All right.
The link. It's
Yes.
at the bottom usually, at least in my case. Chat, and then you can copy paste.
Bill Latham, give us your point of view about this or some other topic. You can talk about your gray fox if you'd rather. Whatever. Your concerns are usually about nature. Bill?
What? Are you talking
speaking to you? Yeah.
Oh, I was, okay. All right. One of the things that I wanted to say in this discussion is that my personal family history goes back into Russia, and we were Germans who followed Catherine the Great into Russia and were settled down in the Don River area, and they were Catherine guaranteed them made 5 guarantees, one of which was freedom from conscription. And so they lived for 200 some odd years without any huge conflict with the 5 principles that Catherine gave them until the Japanese-Russo War. Then the Tsar got all of the men that were of age and sent them east to fight this war against Japan. When my grandfather came back home, he said, "They have violated our rights and we are leaving." He was still in the army.
Sorry,
So-
by when he said our rights, he meant those of the Germans living in Russia?
Say that again?
Did he mean when he said they violated our rights? Who was ours? The Germans living
The Germans.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, the German people.
And he was saying that the Tsar or the Russian government had violated the agreement made with the German immigrants.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Mm.
And so he was still in the military at the time, but he packed up the family and they escaped back into Germany. Germany didn't want them anymore. And so they had to catch ships out of Hamburg and come to the West, to Canada and to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
That's a part of my background. And that's why all the way through that family history, we have been pacifists. And so I'm carrying a pacifist load of about 300 years.
Mm.
And I will stand by it forever.
Mm.
It's very nice to have
Yeah.
a history of being a pacifist like that.
Mhm.
Brian, hello, Brian.
Hi. Yeah. I have a similar story to tell, and that is my great ancestor was Alexander Herzen, and he started Russia's first underground newspaper called Kolokol, which stood for the bell. And he was exiled from Russia in the 1850s for his political writing and had to live in exile in London and Nice, I believe. And during the time of the U.S. Civil War, he was writing for this underground newspaper to emancipate the serfs in Russia. And believe it or not, in 1865, this newsletter, the Kolokol, which was widely circulated in Russia, actually resulted in the Tsar emancipating the serfs in 1865 without a shot being fired. And he managed to achieve with the pen what the U.S. tried to achieve with the sword. And of course, we're still dealing with that today. So it's been a very interesting journey. And I feel extremely fortunate to have just gotten dual citizenship in Australia. And we've emigrated to Australia over the last 5 years. And we're very grateful to have safely landed on the shores of the Western Pacific. So
My impression is that Alexander Herzen was an extremely important person in Russia, influencing a lot of people. My memory is that it was very important to Gorbachev. Do you know about that?
I don't know too much about Gorbachev. What I do know is that Stoppard wrote a play about Herzen, 3 of them actually, under the heading The Coast of Utopia. And I was fortunate enough to go to those plays on Broadway and meet all the people that were performing. And it was 9 hours, really, of 3 plays times 3 hours. And it was really an amazing detail of his life and the turbulence and the challenges. But I'm encouraged. I would love to learn more about Gorbachev's reaction. Lenin said...
I knew, at one point, I knew a lot about Gorbachev. My memory, because I'm 94 now, is unreliable. So I will tell you something that I'm think I remember, but I could have made some errors in my story. But my story is that after Gorbachev, when Gorbachev was a university student, he was, I believe it was at that point that that Khrushchev made his statements about the reality of what had happened during the Stalin period and what had been done to people, and that Gorbachev was, I believe this story is correct. He went to, there's a certain lookout point where the university overlooks the city, and I think that's where he went. And he took an oath in the name of Alexander Herzen to free Russia and create democracy. And now I can look this up, and maybe next time when we have a meeting, I'll make my corrections, because I certainly could have forgotten some parts of it. But I believe that it was Herzen who influenced him, at least in his recollection of Herzen's important role in freeing the serfs.
Oh, that's wonderful. And Lenin said of Herzen, he's too freedom loving. So that's very consistent with your observations as well. I considered that to be a great compliment from Lenin.
Yes, really.
Yes, Norbert. Yes, Norbert. You're muted. You're muted, Norbert.
So
He's still.
Norbert, you're muted.
I'm better now. I'm better now. Make sure that you add those things to the Wikipedia. I just added that in the chat as well, because these things get easily forgotten.
Well, that's a good point. I've never heard about Gorbachev.
Check it. You know, I shouldn't speak about something I don't remember very well, but I'm pretty sure I included in my book. My book was called Russian Quest for Peace and Democracy. Mm-hmm. So my concern has always been to represent adequately the sacrifices and the commitments that have been made by people who took a stand in favor of freedom and human rights. So I very much admire and have known many of the people who were dissidents during the Soviet period, the earlier Soviet period, started going to Russia almost every year, or sometimes more than once, for 28 years, I think, in a row, almost, with one exception. And that was, I started when Brezhnev was still in power, and went through a whole bunch of different transitions. But my greatest admiration was for Gorbachev, of course. Anyway, it's not my point to talk about that now. I wonder what it means that that Alexei Prokhorenko has left us. He's had such a difficult time. He had to flee, of course, from Russia when the war began, because he did not want to go kill Ukrainians. So he went to Istanbul for several months, and then to Poland. And I think he will stay in Poland. But it did mean that he had to give up his previous life as a very successful young interpreter in Russia. So he's living in Warsaw now. And I think he may not be particularly enthusiastic about hearing comments that are so admiring of Putin. He certainly does not share those. At any rate, here
It's
comes
true.
Richard.
Can I come in again? It's true. I have found out from a number of people that that essay would have been intended for the general public of absolutely loathing Russia, but just the general public. Whereas people who have some experience, their own experience of having had to flee, are not going to be able to think that probably in this generation. But that is a smaller number compared to the vast number of ordinary Canadians and Americans who have picked up everything in the propaganda, believe all of it, and just see Putin as the next Satan or whatever. But there are those people who had bad experiences, and they wouldn't be able to say, "Oh well, maybe Putin's okay." You can see that.
Yeah, there are people like that. Yep, there are people like that. I'm not one of them. Hello, Richard Denton. I think you've come at a peculiar moment. I would love to hear what's going on in your life. You're not in your usual location. Where are you, Richard?
Yeah, no, actually, I am in my usual location, although I got a new desk, so it's slightly moved into in my room. But here I am in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada. And happy birthday to you, Meta. You've got your hair all fancied up there. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, your office does not look at all the way I am used to seeing it. So at any rate, what have you been doing with yourself? I think it's a good thing for us to talk about something different at the moment, because I was about to express too many of my own opinions. Come and tell us about your activities.
Well, I think for me, my main thing is involved in Rotary and working for peace, and lately planting peace poles and pollinating gardens to bring the environment and peace together.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would like to see is that our Trans-Canada Trail become a peace trail with peace poles along it, so that people will start to think a little bit more about peace in themselves, peace in
Well,
their...
hold on now. You've said something I don't know anything about. I never heard of a Trans-Canada Peace Trail. What is
Well,
that?
there is a Trans-Canada Trail that goes about 7,000 kilometers from coast to coast that you can walk, bicycle, kayak, or whatever in parts. So again, it's just one of these hiking trails, but to make it more relevant would be to turn it into a peace trail with peace poles along it, and and plant them in pollinating gardens to bring people's attention and reflection on both our polarized world. With peace, you can have peace within yourself, peace within the family. You think about partner abuse. You think peace in the school. You think about bullying in the community. You think about racism. And then you think about war in the world, and how we can work to prevent all of those and use dialogue instead of violent conflict.
Well, what along the trail there are going to be poles? You said poles. What do you mean?
Correct.
What?
Peace Poles is there's May Peace Prevail on Earth International is an organization that began in Hiroshima back in the early 50s, and the poles came into existence in about 1958. And Rotary has now embraced this concept and is making them as well and planting them along the trail. The poles say, "May peace prevail on earth" in 4 or 8 different languages. And We have another gentleman, David Gershon, who ran around the world back in with the a peace torch back in the late 1980s, and got Good Morning America to show him for 1 minute each morning for, I think, about 87 days. And wherever this torch went, he met with either presidents, premiers, or whatever, heads of government, and got them to have a day of peace if they actually happened to be during the war. And so that was very successful, and he's now launched this program called May Peace Prevail on Earth by 2030. And the idea is to get, first of all, groups of 3 to take his 9-week course, and then spread that to groups of 9 to form a peace zone, and then to again expand it exponentially. And if you can get 3.5% or 5% of the world's population to embrace this, then that becomes a tipping point, and then hopefully we can then create peace by 2030. So that's what he's trying to do, and his idea is to put, he has 7 areas of focus that look at peace basically within yourself, but how to become more effective in relating to others. And so there's unity, to see that we're all just one species, that we really shouldn't be having borders. And you have people like Gary Davis, who became the first world citizen at the United Nations just after it was formed. He was an American who gave up his American citizenship to become a world citizen. And it was interesting, he hung out in Paris at the United Nations building until they kicked him out. And then he had to go to Germany, but Germany wouldn't let him in, so he was stuck in limbo on the bridge, on a bridge between Germany and France. Mm-hmm. And he gained quite a bit of notoriety with this concept, and today there is a world citizenship program that is useful for people who don't have papers, and they will give people a world passport, world citizens passport, mm-hmm. and which then can give them some political standing, even though they may not have got documentation to begin with in the first place. So
I guess there have been a few cases where the people at the border let in these guys with a world passport because they didn't know what to do.
Correct.
I don't think it has happened very often, but better little than nothing. And in fact, I'd like to have a world passport. I've always thought I'd go get one, but I haven't bothered. I have an American and a Canadian passport, and I'd like to have 3 or 4 more.
Well, you can get one for $100 from the World Citizenship.
I think it doesn't really have much clout. Anyway, but it's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the whole idea is to see that we're all one species. We're all.
But honey, let's be real. You can be as sweet and kind and loving. You can be a saint. You can be gentle and generous and absolutely never hostile to anybody. And you can't do a damn thing about doing something that is really worthwhile. What we have to do is end the killing in Gaza and in Ukraine. And I dare you to find one single thing you can do, no matter how good you are, and no matter who you find who's even better than you are. Tell me one thing that you can do that is going to make any difference now, that's really going to save anybody's life.
Well, I think there are lots of things that you can do
Now, that's
now.
really to save anybody's life. I mean, if you can go over there with some bags of rice and you can find a way to get in, that would help. But I mean, I can't do that, and I don't think you can do that, and I don't think the guys on that trail with the poles sticking up, wishing them well, can do that.
I think, though, I mean, you can certainly write letters to the editor. You can
What good does
go
the
and
editor
visit your
do?
MP.
Yeah, I agree. We're doing that right now. We're having a conversation, and I believe in changing public opinion. I mean, here's Charles Tauber, who wants to do therapy on people. Yeah, it's a good idea. Sure, let's do some therapy on people. In maybe 1,000 years, we might make a difference in 1 or 2 people. But I'm sorry, but you're not going to solve the problem of how to save lives in a war, or how to stop a war once it's going, by any of these things that we've been saying so far today. It doesn't make a bit of difference.
I think that's too much gloom, Meta. I think if we took it that, just supposing, take Sachs' article as one possibility. If the people who read that agreed with it and said, yes, I will send a letter right away to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and that person doing that thinks, oh, this is so little. But if a great many more people are persuaded, and suddenly there's a fair flood of letters going to Minister of Foreign Affairs, then possibly that minister might bring about a way to have something done about it, bring it up at the UN or whatever, and then more quickly.
I say now, how many people are dying as we speak? Lots of people are dying, starving. Yeah, you can tell me a lot of things that you might be able to have some influence over a longer period of time, but right now, no, not right now. No, I can't do anything, and yet we have to do something. And all this other talk about what we might be able to do in a year or 2 years or 50 years or 100 years, you can keep on talking about that, but it doesn't make a bit of difference. Let's talk about what we have to do to save lives, the people who are being killed right now. Yeah, Peter.
I don't think there is such a possibility, but there are babies being born. There are babies being born each minute.
I agree completely with you, Meta, because the problem, the problem I can see, which causes me to feel complete despair for the human race, is the fact that we're slaughtering people at an enormous rate systematically. The Israelis have a systematic slaughter system, which is killing everybody, and the purpose is to kill everybody in that nation so that they can grab it. And yet nothing is done whatever about that. This is a crime of gigantic dimensions, and everybody who isn't committing it directly, like the Israelis, is abetting it by letting it all happen, like by Britain and other countries. Every other country in the world is by doing nothing, is abetting this monstrous crime. So
Yes.
we're putting ourselves into the level of having a gigantic crime, which we are doing nothing about. And God knows how we're going to do anything about it. If we don't, we've finished as a species. But
Thank you. Brian?
In Russia, there's been a bit of recent progress. The Ukrainians have been actually going after the Black Fleet. And if we collectively, globally, shut down the export of oil and gas from Russia, I believe their bank account will run dry a lot faster.
Nice.
And that could be an effective way to shut down the war economically.
Mm.
And that means Europe shuts down the oil. I mean, just no oil going out of Russia. There are ways to do this. And Ukraine is working on that now with their drones. Thanks.
Norbert.
Yeah, no solution you aspire matter, but close to it, I would say. I think putting pressures on the governments in Europe and USA is probably a good way forward. Plus, I don't do it, but I think going on the streets with pots and making noise and getting a little habit of that, going across the towns in Europe and USA would be a decent thing to do. Apart from that, I still think it's important to do public education about what's going on. Not everybody has access to Al Jazeera. And also share common things we learned during that process. As you know, Code Pink has its own approach. World Beyond War is trying certain things, and we all can come up with different things. But of course, we should join. I think going public, I like the pots and pan thing, and I like the Better World Info thing as my preference in this matter. And I still want to spend a few minutes at some point this evening, not too late, to talk to you about Better World Info.
Okay. Yes, and Lida, and then I think Charles hasn't put his hand up, but I'm sure Charles has thoughts too. Yes, Lida.
Giving massive kind of publicity to the plight of people in Gaza may help. And what I read about just today is that ships, not just one ship, but a whole bunch of ships are leaving Barcelona in Spain and going all the way to Gaza and trying to let the Israelis shoot them. I don't think they're going to dare, because the whole globe is going to be watching. And this is one thing that I think has a hope of doing something. Greta Thunberg is in one of these boats. But this time is massive. It's not just one boat. Madeleine, it was the name of the previous one. A whole bunch of boats going there and people watching. The result of that is that one thing which is clear is that Israeli people are not welcome, at least not in Greece. I mean, there used to be lots of cruises leaving Israel and going all over the Greek islands, And now they wanted to have, to give the, like a entertainment or whatever to the Israeli soldiers specifically. Put them in a cruise, a boat, and send them all around. Wherever they went, there were big demonstrations. And no matter what the right-wing government of Greece would say, I mean, you don't like going somewhere when there are people there and demonstrations and tear gas with the police and all of that. It's kind of, let alone that another thing they had is throwing yogurt. A kind of container of yogurt that's very, the outside is it's not very strong. And so they went to the Port Authority, let's say, of Athens, Piraeus, the biggest harbor of Greece, and they were throwing the yogurts on the sign. This is one way for people to know that one thing is clear is that you're not welcome here, let alone they go, just yesterday there was in another,
Excuse me, I'm a little confused. Who's throwing yogurt at whom?
The people. The people who do not like whatever happens in Gaza and they do not want Israeli soldiers going there for a cruise.
And it was Israeli soldiers who came to Greece and got pelted with
yogurt.
Yogurt? Okay.
Well, the sign
Well,
And also the Israeli soldiers, they would just talk a whole bunch of nice Greek swear words out of here. Anyway, but also just yesterday there is a group in England of Jewish people from England that they went to a big restaurant, 13 people all together. Of course, everything was fine till they went to. There was a sign of Palestine, the Palestinian flag and everything, and so one of them just tore the flag. There was the owner of the restaurant gave him a piece of his mind that okay, you want to cut, So, I mean, there are many cases like this, let alone soldiers. Once Israeli soldiers get off the boat and they go to, there was another case in Salonika. Guns were drawn and there was a mess. I mean, if at least the Israeli people realize that it's not only the hostages. Of course, the hostages matter an awful lot, of course. But the 60, 70, who knows how many thousands of Gaza people, and perhaps 1 million dead. That's going to happen. They matter an awful lot too.
Well, I think that there's a real chance that when you pelt people with yogurt, you're going to hit somebody who isn't really your enemy. I mean, about Alexei.
No, that was on the sign.
Alexei probably would get pelted with yogurt if he were in Greece now, but he's a good guy. And
that was if you go there to take over.
Yes, but I'm actually concerned about the people who were the Russian men. At least 1 million Russian men fled from Russia to avoid being sent to kill Ukrainians.
Oh yes,
and Alexei is one of them. But I know some other Russian men who've been through that too. And we, the rest of the world, I mean, Europe and North America, most of the other countries around the world, do not make it easy on these guys. Whereas I think they are saints and they should be applauded and welcomed with garlands of flowers. So, Alexei, am I right that you find some difficulty in settling where you may want to go, and people may treat you with skepticism, if not actual cartons of yogurt?
Well, I have to tell you that to be frank, I'm not complaining because Poland has given me the status of a refugee. I have proven my case. I have I've been checked. It took them a year because let's not forget that under the guise of political emigre, there can always be a FSB infiltrator, KGB, former KGB, now FSB agent who would be sent to Europe to put something on fire, to disrupt something, and things happen, and so they had to check me, but now I really don't have any legal problems or whatsoever, and maybe because I speak the local language, I fit in quite well in Poland, so I cannot complain here. But I know the fate of many immigrants is not by far not so good, not so favorable. For example, in the United States, under the current administration, lots of people are having problems. Really, they're being sent back to Russia. Recently, a couple of days ago, I read. I can't verify that, but there have been news that about 60 people were deported by Egypt from the U.S. to Russia. Some of them were conscientious objectors, and some of them were put into peril by doing so, by having to go back to where they could be persecuted. So it's very country by country. Even in Europe, in some places it doesn't take a year like in Poland. It takes 3 or 4 years living in a camp, in an enclosed, fenced camp, where you cannot even go to a nearby town to see a museum or a library. You have to get to be allowed to do so.
Is that true also in
it's very
Poland?
different.
No, not in Poland.
Poland is very, very favorable to migrants. You just are not allowed to work for the first 6 months. Other than that, you can live in a specific center, so the detention center, like in a specific place, designated place, or you can live wherever you wish, just inside the country for 1 year.
Mhm.
It's very, very favorable and friendly, and I'm really, I cannot complain personally, but it's different in many countries.
Mhm. Okay. And you
No,
think it has something to do with the fact that you speak good Polish?
I guess because it always has it always helps integration, and it always helps understanding and fitting in and becoming part of society.
Mhm.
So it always helps, but in many countries it doesn't.
Mhm. Thank you.
no, I don't think.
I would say on the immigration, it's really quite an achievement, and I'm so glad that you're landing well there.
Mhm. Charles,
Thank you.
you
Thank you,
haven't.
sir.
Yes, Charles hasn't said a word yet, and yet I know that Charles has been helping Russian immigrants, men who have left the country to keep from having to kill Ukrainians. Do you want to speak to that, Charles? Charles Tauber is a psychiatrist who's lived in Vukovar, Croatia for the last 30 or so years, working, doing therapy with the people who have been traumatized by war. And I know that you, as a Quaker, have been helping some of the people who've had to escape from Russia. Do you want? And we did at least one show that Charles facilitated by putting me in touch with somebody in Kyiv who was helping these men. Tell me how things are going with you, Charles.
How things are going with me, or how things are going with the people
With
in
you, your project, and of course what you know about the current circumstances of the Russian men who've had to flee.
Well, let's start with that, and then I'll come back to us, because our situation is, I won't say dire, but pretty bad at the moment. There is a huge amount of resistance to deserters and to conscientious objectors getting out, because Western countries like violence. They consider the military to be very almost holy. Here right now in Croatia, they're celebrating the 30 years since the end of the war and quote unquote victory. And those values, there are no values of resistance to government. We must respect authority. Quite recently here, there were several concerts by a guy called Thompson. I don't know if you've heard of this guy.
What's his first name?
He's called Thompson. Actually, his name is Marko Pekovic. But he calls himself Thompson because of the gun. And his followers, there were 500,000 people in Zagreb who went to his concert. 500,000. Wearing black shirts, giving the Ustasha, which is the right-wing Croatian salute, which is very similar to the Nazi salute.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, in terms of the Russians, they're being accepted nowhere. We're working with several individuals, but also with a group, and they're trying to get wherever they can. Brian was talking about nonviolent resistance. I agree with that. People have to stop obeying authority. That's extremely important. People have to learn that what is authority? Why does it exist? There's a show on BBC Sounds, which this part of it you still can get, and it's called Bad People. I don't know if anybody else has found that. And they had a thing on, indeed, obedience to authority. Very, very important concept. And people have to be taught, not when they go to school, not I must do exactly what the teacher says, and not exactly what the state says, and not go for conscription, which is, by the way, increasing in virtually every Western European country. But we, to obey your principles, and for those religious people, religious principles. Yeah. People like us are not popular, and we've got about 2 months worth of money. So if anybody knows any sources of donors, I will be writing a letter to Meta and to anybody else I know within the next week or so, talking about our situation. But nobody wants to support people who have the kinds of views that we have and who are doing the kinds of work that we are. Because working with the trauma, and you know I say this every time I come here, is essential. Because the people are destroyed. The families are destroyed. The families
Charles, can I suggest something?
Sure.
You know, I will be putting this up on a Substack as usual. And people don't seem to go to our website for the comments section. It's too bad. We've invested a lot in trying to make that work, but nobody goes there. But what I think you should do when this is up on Substack is go to the comments place and put there, right there, please, write down about what you're saying about your work and your need for funds, and ask people, at least appeal to people who check the comments column after each of the video shows, okay?
I certainly will do that. And Meta, you will get a letter within the next week or so, which if we could spread that to the people who come here and perhaps to others.
I don't reach out to the people who come here. And I don't think it's going to work I can't promise you that I can do anything worthwhile, but I'll do my best. But I can't promise much. I'm not optimistic about that being helpful.
I know. We're suffering right now with this because we see we're getting constant requests for work, also by the way, from Congo. Lots of people in Congo are suffering very badly from the war situation. We just got a request today. Lots of young people who are being conscripted there. Yeah, there's a lot to say about this, and we want to continue to exist. Let me put it that way. So.
Well, bless you. I hope you can, and I favor it. That, you know, trying to prioritize our actions, unfortunately, is one of the most difficult things that we have to do. We have to think realistically, what can really make a difference and what is just blather.
That's my point too. And my point is that we're seeing people, and again, another example is Nigeria, with all the wars going on there. People suffering. And there are a number of very, very good people with whom we're working who are doing their utter best to try and do something. But people are suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is how we, at any rate, reduce that suffering.
I think we have to think in terms of within weeks, if not days or minutes, how to get food to the people who are starving, how to get access to medical treatment for the people who are being killed just for showing up in a hospital, and then they get bombed there. And journalists who get killed for being there reporting on it. We have to find some way of intervening, not 5 years from now, but within days, to save any lives.
I agree with you completely.
I am not interested in hearing about history.
No.
I am interested in somebody telling me how I can be somehow useful in saving lives. And that means stopping the killing.
Mm-hmm. Again, I agree with you.
Norbert?
Go ahead, sorry.
Of course, it's easy to say, but imagine what would happen if a 94-year-old lady, maybe in a wheelchair, is being wheeled through Toronto with a pot and a pan and making a noise. Short before being admitted to a mental hospital, I think you may get some attention that way.
Meta, I don't think you want to do this.
You don't have to do it. I don't do it myself yet. But it's an idea, and it's not, I think it has value if you have supporters, if you prepare it well, if you have a press statement ready. I think it has been done in the past with Corona and other things. And if you see the Gazans suffering, they come with pots to these places and they go empty-handed back from there. So it's quite symbolic if these things happen in Europe, USA and Canada, Australia. Of course, you need to be a bit crazy, but why not? Greta Thunberg was crazy enough to do something. She was
you're closer to being realistic than anybody else I've heard talking so far today. So maybe that would be helpful. I'll tell you,
for some people,
I'm frankly not able to do that, but I do this on Wednesday. I will be interviewing a woman named Michelle Landsberg. Now, Michelle Landsberg is about 85. She was a very famous columnist at, I think, the Globe and Mail for many, many years. But she's been retired a while. She is the wife of Stephen Lewis, who was the son of David Lewis, one of the early, if not the founder, at least a very important leader of the New Democratic Party in Canada, a social democratic party. And Stephen Lewis is now himself a fairly old man, but their son, Avi Lewis, is now running to be the leader of the NDP. Avi Lewis lives in Vancouver, I believe, and teaches at UBC, and is the husband of Naomi Klein, whose name I think everybody here will recognize. So I spoke the other day with Michelle Landsberg, and she's going to be on my show, and we will talk about her own trajectory as a person who had been a strong, passionate Zionist all her life. She went to work on a kibbutz as a young girl, and of course has been favorable to supporting Israel all her life. And now she says, I don't care what happens to Israel. I am a post-Zionist. She said it is because they're starving people, they're killing people, and it's intolerable, and I cannot stand for this anymore. So she is leading movements on the street of people called Women in Black. Women go down there wearing black clothes, and they stand around with posters and placards, and I suppose it must be near the Israeli embassy, but of course, I have not left my apartment for years, except once to go to the doctor. So I once a year I go out in a wheelchair to the doctor. But I can't do what you suggest. But it is the level of activism that might indeed call attention to the urgency of the situation. And that's what I'm saying, is that we have to treat this as an emergency, as not something that you can take chronic illness. It's been there for 50 years. The conflict between Israel and Palestine has been there, and it's gone on, and it's not going to stop until we do something extraordinary to make it stop. And that's what I want to hear. How are we going to do that? I mean,
I just want to come back
Yeah.
on one thing. Norbert, you were talking about Greta Thunberg. I was involved with the Sierra Club back in the late 60s, saying exactly the same things that she was saying. And in the early 70s with the first actions of Greenpeace. So we're not talking, and these were very brave people who were out on the street then. So we're not talking about anything new. The question is, are people listening? And I don't think they are. I still,
Is,
I
is
would
the media listening?
disagree. I would disagree. Tomorrow is Labor Day here in the United States. I am going to be on the picket line with my sign opposing Donald Trump.
Mm.
And it's a nationwide movement. So there will be millions of people standing out there in the streets across this country, doing what we can do to curb what's happening here at home.
Mm.
okay, but we've also got to be helping the people to get through, I hate to say it, but the traumatization because of all of this,
Sure.
of the war.
Sure.
Because if we don't do that, people are going to fall apart and are not going to be able to carry out these actions.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that's the question, is how we can save a life.
Yeah, I agree. How do we save lives?
Yeah.
Now, the people who refuse to go kill, they're saving lives, but it's a different kind of sense of urgency. Their predicament, like Alexei or some of the other Russian men I know who've left, that courage is exactly what is needed, but it can't. You don't see whose life you saved by not killing them. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to show. Richard.
I think we put in the chat here having boycotts and not investing in companies that are supporting the war. So there's not investing in Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon now, which RTX, General Dynamics, to name a few. We have an organization, Don't Bank on the Bomb, that was started through ICANN, and they are getting banks not to support these companies. It's a slow process, but every year more banks, more pension funds are not supporting the military. And I think also, as Norbert points out, boycotting is another. You can do that either on a personal level, but I think, again, getting more people to boycott Israel is another effective way to show your disagreement with what's going on over there in Gaza. I'll throw it over to Norbert.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always better than nothing, yeah. And it's good. It's a positive step in the right direction. May I have 3 minutes, Meta, to talk about Better World Info briefly,
Okay,
because
sure.
most people may not be familiar at all with it. I keep it brief. I'm quite capable of. I have a video presentation, and you may see it now. I'm not sure, but please let me know if you can see it.
No.
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Give me 1 more minute. If I don't manage, I just talk away.
You need to be made host, I believe. If Sue can do that.
Okay. Thank you. Can Sue or Meta make me a co-host, maybe?
I don't know how.
I'll try.
Sue, do you
Sue is
know?
around,
I'm going to try. Hang on here.
because I can also not chat.
Sue, I had trouble getting Sue set up, and I forget how to do things.
Participants, where are we here?
Let's just try for 1 minute. If not, it's fine.
I don't think you have to be a co-host.
I'm pretty sure I have to be a co-host.
Yes, I think so.
Hang on.
Alternatively, just give permission for people to share screen.
Well, that's what I know I've done is I've just allowed people to show screens.
There you are.
Aha.
Okay, there you
There
are.
we go.
Thank
Good.
you. Thank you. Okay.
If you're going to enlarge it there, that would
If
help.
Yeah, it helps if you click on it. You must do that. Mine is pretty large already, I'm afraid. Can't make it any larger. I make this smaller. Now, what you see if you go to Better World Info is this, which is essentially like an advanced Google directory for NGOs and people who want to make this world a better place. And peace is one of the many topics, as are conflict regions and other things. It's essentially an information hub. It's a non-profit platform. It's a fairly comprehensive internet directory with 700,000 handpicked links in German and English. It's an open platform. So it's kind of unique, not quite like Wikipedia, but similar. It's collaborative. So if anybody wants to either send us 10 links or join in, welcome. It's especially useful for peace activists around the world. It's free. It's a bit like, I talked with Meta about this recently, like a Wikipedia for a better world. You know, Wikipedia has a different focus, and we also focus on links. So that is the big difference to Wikipedia. Better world and links, but we also offer texts. For instance, here on Peace and Nonviolence, we have texts and we have links. And if I move down to speed it up a little bit, we have the same for conflict regions and there you will find Gaza War with 25,000 links. So I and my very small team spent months filling that with information, and we're now trying to make it more user-friendly. You see those categories. So if any politician doesn't or tells you, we don't quite know, we don't believe you, and you can't trust Al Jazeera, well, there are plenty of other sources you can point them to. So it's good for politicians and back offices and journalists who need to get up to speed. It's a bit too much for ordinary citizens, but I guess you are not ordinary citizens. The main thing you can do is check it out. I really invite you to do that. Use it, play with it, share it if you like it. If you use social media, please join. If you have time and brain, help improve, adding links or adding guides, which are quite informative at times. Also, feedback is great, and especially experts are most welcome. And that's it essentially. It's just the thing that I feel we need resources like this, including Metas, of course, in the age of artificial intelligence. Otherwise, you get drowned and people will not find you anymore. This is one central information hub for peace. It's interconnected with other movements and it's collaborative. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm happy to answer your questions, but all I know, what you see in the English website has been done by 2 or 3 people in their spare time, of course, over 30 years. Imagine what can be done with 1 or 2 more people. It doesn't have to be you. That's all. I try to unshare now.
Okay.
You can help me.
Anybody
I
want
get it.
to ask him any questions or comment about his work? It's quite a contribution. You've been doing it for a number of years, haven't you, Norbert?
Like you.
Yeah, okay. If anybody wants to speak to Norbert, yes, Richard.
What I find interesting in my own life is that I think in the States there's over 2,000 peace organizations, but they don't collaborate and they don't work together. And I think this is a big problem. And what we need to do is to get all these people to stop trying to get funds for their own pet project and all work together. So I didn't know anything about this, Norbert, but this is great.
Okay.
The press will not tell you, the NGOs will not tell you, and Google will tell you neither. Of course, it's not perfect, no worries. But if you don't share it, if you don't join in, well, it's useless.
I wonder about Charles. Were you going to say something more about your Russian escapees?
You want me to? I can.
Yes, please bring us up to date on what is being going on with you. Your Quaker friends are helping, right?
The Quaker friends are helping. They're being essential in this. They're trying to bring people together. The deserters are trying to get out, and to whatever country they can, in Western Europe in particular. They're being arrested by the Russians in various countries, places like Georgia, and they're trying in Armenia. So it's a very difficult situation, and even the fact that they know that at least somebody is on their side is very, very important.
Mhm. Well, I see that. I think we've lost two people. I don't see
Sure.
Brian anymore, unless you were hiding, Brian. And I think Peter may have left us. And I was going to ask Peter to expand a little bit on the topic that I'm going to try to get set up a conversation, another talk show within a week or two about the changes in the Antarctic. Of course, Peter is the world's greatest authority on Arctic sea ice and presumably Antarctic sea ice as well. But there's a lot of bad news about that. So I'm going to set up a conversation about that. And Brian knows a thing or two about the oceans, but I'm glad to see you back, Brian. Do you have...
Far from Antarctica.
Yeah. And that's right. You do. You even get penguins in New Zealand, don't you? Do you get penguins in Australia?
Yes, we do. And there is a concern that the Antarctic bottom water, which provides oxygen to most of the world oceans, is diminishing.
Uh-huh.
So there's many concerns. The Doomsday Glacier is cracking, and the sea ice is concerning as well. So there are many warning signs in Antarctica, and the ocean warming is accelerating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the Gulf Stream may change soon.
True.
Well, tell us a little, get us a preview of what we're going to talk about with your stellar book, because you and I are going to have a conversation about a book that you greatly admire, and a person, the author of it, is somebody you, I think, studied with. Is that right?
Yes. Tony Seba is a co-author of the stellar book, and he he teaches at Stanford quite a bit. He's quite an accomplished thought leader, and he has an organization called Rethink X.
Sorry, but Stanford is where you did your graduate work?
No, I've been teaching clean tech at Stanford since 2015 or earlier, actually, and I teach some classes with Leslie Fields. She does a engineering course, and it's about climate repair. So that's been over the past several years. But I met Tony Seba more along the lines of clean tech and renewable energy. And of course, he wrote Solar Trillions, but now Stellar really talks about how to decentralize our economies and focus on an abundance of energy that can be provided with solar, wind, and batteries. But first, I think he does have a good prescription for the problems we've been discussing today. And that is, it's an over-centralization of power and money that has resulted in this mass imbalance and has attracted a lot of sociopaths into positions of leadership. And what we need to do is take back our local and regional defense and care for our communities. And, no better example than the Ukraine, where you can see any centralization of power and might and military muscle is quickly diffused with drones. And so, in the 1800s, a farmer wouldn't think of doing his farming without a shotgun or rifle. That was pretty much standard. And from Switzerland to the Americas, it's that's just part of what you have. Every farmer has a rifle. Well, in this day and age, the 21st century equivalent is the drone. And I think what we need are drone militias that we use for farming today to survey our farms, and we use them to irrigate our farms as well. Did you know you can irrigate a crop for 10 times less cost than even a crop duster? It costs about $10 a hectare to irrigate with a crop duster. Well, it's now down to $1 a hectare to irrigate with a drone. And the reality is, if a farmer has a drone that he can use for irrigation and monitoring and precision agriculture.
Hold on. That's too interesting to pass. You have a drone and you can get you can irrigate it for a tenth as much as it used to be. How can that be? Irrigation is you use water. You can't take your garden hose up in the sky. How do they
I'm
water?
referring to the spraying that you do with either seaweed biostimulants or if you need to apply nutrients, this can be done with the drone. These drones will carry 30 kilos.
That's not irrigation. Irrigation is water.
It's the adding of nutrients that are necessary. You know, the crop dusters have been running for decades, if not centuries. The point is, with the seaweed foliar,
it's the word irrigation that put me off, because crop dusting is not irrigating.
Well, it is a liquid application. My apologies. We're referring to the way you tend crops in North America and Australia and other places. The point is, the cost of these applications has dropped by an order of magnitude, which is profound. Because if you apply a liter of seaweed foliar biostimulant to a hectare of crop, you can get 20% or less fertilizer need to be applied and get 15 to 30% higher yields. This transformation of decarbonizing our agriculture is so important, because if we actually measure global warming not with tons of carbon dioxide, but with watts per square meter, that changes the equation dramatically. And Professor James Hansen has moved exclusively to a radiative forcing metric for climate disruption. That's a very important thing, because then agriculture becomes about 60% of the challenge and problem that we're facing with all of the greenhouse gases that are emitted. And so by starting with regenerative agriculture, we can do a lot towards climate repair, both in terms of emissions.
I got to stop you again, because you used a word I don't get. What is radiative forcing metric?
Watts per square meter. That's what is controlling our heating faster than anything else, is a number of watts of imbalance of heat per square meter. That's the sunlight coming in minus the infrared going out. And that watts per square meter is the best way to measure our climate scorecard in this century. And that's what James Hansen is using.
Okay. And this is a new change, huh? Because I think that's interesting. If he's changed the way, are other people adopting that as a way of determining the way things are going, or
they are, because it addresses all three legs of the climate triad, and that is emissions to zero, 2,400 gigatons of carbon removal, and climate repair, including rebrightening our marine clouds and other clouds so that we can actually reflect more sunlight back into space the way it was pre-industrially. So this is an example of a marine stellar technology, because once you build a hectare of marine permaculture, it'll produce seaweed for decades. You don't have to do anything else. There's no inputs. There's no fertilizer needed. That's a really key aspect. That's the key part about stellar, is that you need no continuing inputs and no toxic outputs. And that's what this is all about. And so marine stellar is really just an example of stellar technology where you build battery, wind, and solar. You have enough energy abundance for the cloudiest day of the year. And on the sunny days, you have a surplus. And you have to figure out what to do with the surplus. That's the kind of problem we want to have. Secondly, food security. And that is between precision fermentation, precision agrivoltaics, and precision mariculture, we can create food abundance for our communities as well. And the third will be the advances in labor, AI, and robotics, and all the rest, which we can use to advantage for communities as well. And it's all about open AI. So these three technologies together ensure energy, food security, and labor is available to those communities. My point about the drones is the following. Right now, it's a very asymmetric warfare, and this is what we saw 250 years ago when the country in the US was just getting started. And it's the ability for communities to defend themselves with a well-armed drone militia that is actually the greatest restoring force of peace around the planet. And I think there's an interesting possibility that we have our our plowshares, and that is our drones, which in times of need can repel invaders and can deter them from invading in the first place. And I think it's that kind of asymmetric balance that we should lean into and build stellar communities, thousands of stellar communities around the world. And we hope to be leading the way on this in the coming years right here in Queensland, Australia.
Good. Well, you know, I haven't thought of trying to defend a whole country with drones, but I would say that, you know, back a couple of months ago when the Ukrainians were able to knock out a very significant fraction of the Russian airplane delivery system, the planes that are set up to deliver nuclear weapons. These drones, they put trucks and got trucks into Russia with a false lid on the ceiling of the truck. And at the certain moment, the lid of the truck, the top of the truck, comes down, and all of these little drones go flying out, and they knock out a good part of the Russian airplane system that's for nuclear weapons. Now look here. Think of how much those planes cost. And those little drones are just a pittance, you know, little tiny.
Well, exactly. And, you know, we are seeing right now Ukraine winning the war with drones. They're producing millions of drones per year. And now they are taking out the Black Fleet of oil tankers in Russia with drones. And that is the key. That is the key to shutting down the economics of the war machine in Russia. And see, that's why drones are where it's at. It's decentralized. And what I like are the peaceful use of drones. But if every farmer has a drone, we have a powerful drone militia, and that will deter the forces against these future invasions. I'm hoping it can bring a lot more peace to the.
Alexei, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just I was about to give this example of the Black Sea Fleet being virtually annihilated. The remnants of it are hiding in a harbor. They're not. They were used in 2022. They were used to shoot missiles on Ukraine. So there was even in the news there was even a rubric which told us how many ships are in the Black Sea, out in the Black Sea, and ready to shoot the missiles. Now the fleet is non-existent virtually. It's hiding in a harbor in Novorossiysk, which means that traditionally it's a seismic change. So traditionally you would, as a naval power, China, US, Britain, they would invest into big ships, destroyers, battleships, cruisers. Now, over the past 3 years, all this has been called into question. So whether we have to be conservative and still build big ships, or we should rethink our whole approach to marine warfare and go for cheap drones, which are more powerful than the traditional ships. It's just seismic, and I think the peaceful uses of the drones are no less spectacular, at least from what I heard from dear Brian. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I thought you said that it was the oil tankers. No, the Black Sea Fleet is a military set of ships, right? But what about the oil tankers?
The Black Fleet of oil tankers are now being taken out by drones as of this month. Ukraine has started attacking the fleet, the oil tankers that are filling up in Russia. And if they can cut off that part of the Russian economy, Russia needs to collapse. I mean, Putin's going to drive Russia into collapse, and that's the only way you're going to get the regime change that'll be needed to bring peace. We've got to deprive Russia of the economic ability to fight the war.
Well, you know, my friend Konstantin Samoilov, who again is one of the people who fled Russia to keep from having to go kill Ukrainians, who's living in Tashkent now. He has a show every day where he he does a streaming show, a very interesting talk show. Well, no, it's not a talk show because he does all the talking, except that he answers things who people type in questions, and so it's live in that sense. But he doesn't so much interview people, but he always has a lot of very interesting ideas to share. And
Exactly.
one of the positions that he's taken all along is that it's not going to be that the war is ended by either side defeating the other on the battlefield, that the war is going to end from the internal collapse in Russia, that the economy is going to fall apart, and somebody will finally figure out they need to get rid of Putin in order to save the country, and they will find a way to do it. So he keeps, I think he's a little bit too optimistic of how soon this is going to happen, because he keeps seeing that it's almost any day now, you know.
There's something we can do, and that is the Baltic nations are contemplating shutting down the Baltic Sea to Russian oil traffic. Mm-hmm. And this needs to happen sooner rather than later. We need to get the resolve to just shut down that revenue so that Russia will stop the war sooner. I think it's just zero oil coming out of Russia is what we need to aim for. Mm-hmm. And that's a real challenge out of the Baltic and the other ports as well.
Well, that was what I was wondering when you were talking about maybe the oil tankers are being on the Black Sea, maybe they're being stopped, but how much of the oil is exported that way and how much in other ways? Also, there's another thing about the oil tankers. I don't think you can do it completely because they are using other ships, old, they go around scouting for empty tankers they can find and fill them up and use them. So they're not really Russian, and I don't think anybody's going to go around shooting and blowing up tankers that they don't quite know who owns.
My understanding
one such instance,
are going after the oil tankers in the port in Russia, just like they're attacking the oil refineries now. They're actually going in, and if the tanker is in a port in Russia, it's a subject to attack.
They're going in and attacking tankers that don't belong to Russia. I mean, I think
if they're on a Russian port, they're fair game.
Bought up these secondhand tankers, or else they're renting them or something like that, and so they're fair game. You say
if they're docked in a Russian port, they're fair game.
Uh-huh. Alexei, do you know about that?
Well, I haven't heard about that yet, but I think the decrepit state of those ships is raising lots of eyebrows, and it has cost dearly already in terms of environment. I guess it was January or February when such a real wreck, maybe 30 years old, collapsed, not because it was hit by the drones, but because of its own terrible state. It collapsed between the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea, and virtually the whole coast of the Black Sea was rendered unfit for vacations, and this season was so the part near Sochi, from Sochi up north, it was rendered unfit for bathing, for swimming, and so this season was wasted on people. And given that people don't have Russian people have difficulties traveling to not only to Europe but to Turkey as well right now, because no banking cards work anywhere else but in Russia. So you either have to have a big heap of money, a heap of cash to travel anywhere, to Thailand, to Turkey. So virtually the only opportunity was missed because the Black Sea coast was rendered dirty as well. And another thing, it was a great catastrophe for this the fish, for the jellyfish, for algae, for all that lives in the sea. the government, of course, did not find any money to help repair that, because all the money goes for killing, and that's that's one of the results of that Black Fleet.
Okay.
It's a severe situation. The sooner we can shut down the oil coming out of Russia, the sooner we can have peace in Ukraine.
100%.
I want to take the last minute or two to talk about a project that we, as Project Save the World, are planning. And I don't want to announce it exactly because we're still in the phase of planning it, and things can change before we get really the program in place. But we expect probably about the last week in October to begin a series of meetings called a public inquiry into artificial intelligence and the risks and the ways of protecting against those risks. And as of now, the idea is to have 5 meetings in a row. That's one every week, the same day of the week, for 1 hour each, in which a series of people who register will meet and deliberate on some aspect of the problem. So I think the first meeting, for example, and before they meet, they should do a little homework. We will recommend or assign some preliminary reading and video watching, only an hour or two before each show, and they will watch the videos, some of which we will prepare. Right now, I'm trying to set up. I've already made arrangements to host a preliminary meeting about disinformation and deep fakes, which are the creation of videos that are fraudulent. They can now take pictures of 2 or 3 or 5 pictures of your face, and they can make a video of you dancing or killing somebody or whatever they want to say you're doing. And they can also take your voice and manipulate it so it sounds like you're saying whatever they tell you to say. And so these are videos of look like real people doing things that they actually would probably never really do. And the problem is it's very difficult to spot that, and they are now being posted on YouTube and are fooling people. It can be very serious when it's a politician making a statement that, in fact, he wouldn't have ever made. It can be really, during an election, it's very serious. So probably our first hour will be discussing how we protect ourselves from that. And then we want to have at least 1 hour about the economic effects of AI. What's it going to do for jobs? What's it going to do for our income? How are we going to, or whether we will be able to equalize income or prevent it from becoming extremely even worse in terms of inequality, etc. What will the third world people do who depend on, gardening and agriculture? Those things will have to be discussed. And then one of the topics, the most important, I think, at least one of the sessions, and maybe more, will have to do with the notion of using AI as an agent for us. And when we delegate the authority to AI to make fateful decisions on the behalf of human beings, that then we become committed to, or that we cannot undo, because they will actually make structural changes in society that we no longer have the power to do. That is a real place where people are fearing that what is called AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is coming up within the next few years, that is really where we are most at risk. But especially shortly after AGI comes into play, we will have the rise of superintelligence, because AGI can build improvements on itself and become vastly more intelligent than all human beings. We won't be able to even understand what they're saying to each other, these AI machines and so on. So we are really the most serious threats to humankind, and many people believe that humanity will be eliminated because AI will see no need to keep us around when its own interests are maybe incompatible with our own goals. So all of these things are concerns that the most experienced and the most sophisticated members of the AI creation committees, the people like Geoffrey Hinton and Yoshio Bengio and Stuart Russell and Max Tegmark and you name them. These people are very, very worried about the threats that this poses to humankind. So it's going to be extremely important for citizens to have discussed these issues and form policies and recommendations, which then we can try to promote to various governments. People will be invited to join this conversation if they're members of Project Save the World, or if they are paid subscribers to our Substack, which is, I think, $8 a month US. And we will start announcing that in a few weeks, probably when the magazine comes out in about a month. We will be clearer about what our program is going to be and what you get for the paying this money to join. Anyway, I hope we'll have something like between 5 and 10 people in the panel, and that we will run these deliberations very much as if they were citizens' assemblies. That is, with the idea that these should be citizens who have some influence, just as, for example, a jury has an influence over, let's say, the life or death of or the imprisonment of a potential putative killer, or any other thing that we use juries for. These are significant deliberations that we think should have a real influence. And as a matter of fact, in my personal opinion, I believe that probably the best way of constraining the power of AI as agents to take over the world is to make sure that they can do certain things, but only up to the point where they're about to do something that could be lethal to human beings. And then at that point, any fateful, crucial decisions should be made with the approval and the consent of a global citizens' assembly. I would love to see a world citizens' assembly of 300 or 400 people who would meet by Zoom or sometimes in person and deliberate on the issues that are coming up for us that AI is going to present for us in the upcoming future. That's my personal opinion about how best to solve that problem for the time being. Whether that'll hold up in the long run is, I think, questionable. But at any rate, that's what we're going to be offering, and you've got to keep your eyes open. We'll be announcing it in Peace Magazine, which will go out to all of you. We send it out free of charge to everybody on the Substack list, which is now about 9,000 people. Brian, you have some comments.
Yeah, I'm curious if we can contribute to the bibliography for specific chapters that you're envisioning. I can see a number of references that'll be very helpful for the discussion. So if you can headline each of the topics, I think we could have some directed bibliographic suggestions that could really help foster the conversation.
The sooner you send me your proposals, the better, because in the next few weeks, we'll, of course, be compiling the bibliography, and I'd love to have your input. I think you have a lot to say. Okay, so do so, and the sooner the better, Brian.
Yeah,
Norbert,
I'll shoot over a list of topics. That'll be quite helpful.
okay, yeah. Okay, Norbert?
Yeah, just want to mention, and I put 2 links in the chat for you, that we are happy to cooperate. We have a section on artificial intelligence, which we can increase, improve. We have a section on fake news, so please check it out, use it, link it if you want. And there is some research hours we put into that.
Thank you. All right, we will do so. Anybody else? We're off past 4 o'clock, so we need to wind up. But yes, Charles Tauber.
Yeah. 2 things. First of all, I have a very good candidate for these AI discussions who is working on it. He lives in Maastricht. And he's been doing extensive work on this kind of stuff. So I'll send you his. The guy's name is Ben Hassin. And he's excellent. The other point is, we haven't spoken tonight about the Balkans. And obviously we don't have time to go into it, but the situation in Serbia and Bosnia is pretty awful. And also in context of the Russian support of, among others, Vučić, the president of Serbia, and Dodik, who is the president of what is called the Republika Srpska, which is this Serbian part of Bosnia. But we don't have time to go into it, unfortunately. So,
too bad we didn't get to it earlier. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, remember next time to bring it up early, because I think we spent a lot of time on,
Russia.
A difficult issue, long time standing issue. Okay, bless you all. It's 6 minutes after 4, so I'm going to hang up here. And what's that?
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, dear Meta. This candle is for you. I have this one candle, and this is for you. And I see beautiful flowers in your room, and it's a very important day for me, at least, and I think for us all. And so many happy returns, lots of happiness. I'm excited to see a smile on your face. Thank you so much for giving us this smile.
Thank you too.
This candle is for you today.
It's really you're all very, very dear to me. And Alexei, I think of you as like a son. You're a dear friend. Okay, and here's Brian's
Thank you so much.
hands clapping. I didn't know you could make those clap, but that's good. Thank you. Okay, you have a good week, a month, and I'll see you on the last
Thank you.
of September. Bye-bye.
Bye.